Well, next on Outside Source, we're going to give you details of a new survey here in the UK that has found that almost half of the people in the country hold one anti-Semitic view or another. I've been talking to Jonathan Sacerdote. He's from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. They commissioned this data. Let's get more details on exactly what anti-Semitic views are held.
We carried out, with the assistance of YouGov, a nationally representative poll of 3,411 British adults, and we presented them with certain statements which British Jewish people had reported to us they had heard made and considered to be anti-Semitic. Those are statements like, Jews think they are better than other people, or Jews have too much power in the media, or even Jews talk about the Holocaust too much in order to get sympathy. And we were quite startled by some of the results we found. For example, 45%, that's almost half, of British adults polled believed at least one of those statements to be true. And 1 in 4 people, 26%, believed at least 2 of those statements to be true. So we are obviously looking at these results and wondering how this climate in the UK has been allowed to develop. And when we think back even to statements by Danny Cohen, the director of TV at the BBC himself, saying just the other week that he is worried about the rising peak of anti-Semitism in this country, we've got to ask ourselves as a nation what's going on.
So you talk about these figures as developing. So is it your belief that if you did an identical study 10 years ago, the findings would have been lower?
I can't speculate about such a thing. The whole point in polling
But
is
you are
that
suggesting in the
it,
language that you're using that this is getting worse.
That's based on a sentiment gauge, let's say. Anecdotally, we've heard more and more Jews speaking out about this. And that's actually reflected more widely in the Jewish community here. In a separate survey that we carried out ourselves and released as part of our annual anti-Semitism barometer that we are inaugurating today, more than half of British Jews feel that anti-Semitism now echoes the 1930s. And well over half, 58%, believe that Jews may have no long-term future in Europe, only 70 years after the liberation of the concentration camps in which the Nazis attempted to exterminate European Jewry.
So some of the people you've been speaking to think in the long term Jews don't have a place in Europe or may not be able to stay in Europe. Is that translating into a desire to leave or a decision to leave?
Absolutely it is. Figures released just in the last week showed that during 2014 a record number of French Jews, for example, emigrated to Israel because they felt so unsafe in France. And we can see why after what happened last week, and not just last week, with that brutal hostage situation which resulted in killings of Jews in a kosher supermarket the day they were shopping for the Sabbath meals, but also when we look back to the brutal killing of Jewish children in a Jewish school in Toulouse, targeted because of their religion, and when we look also in Brussels at the shooting in the Jewish museum there which killed Jewish people. How on earth can these people not be worried about their future in Europe?
That's Jonathan Sacerdote from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism in the UK.